So Dave, how important is character death or the threat of death to a campaign?
Well, Ted, without risk, reward really mean anything?
So does every death have to mean something?
Well, Ted, why don't we discuss the dumbest deaths of D&D? Welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds, by Nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Steve, and as usual, I'm joined by this nerd.
Nerdarchist Ted.
Hey, don't let those D&D videos die in the YouTube graveyard. Instead, herd them through your feed by hitting that subscribe button.
But if it's those Nerdarchy vids you want to live on, then make sure you attune to that notification bell.
Hey, before we jump into our video, I have a quick announcement. Over on Nerdarchy the store, we have a set of aircraft aluminum official Nerdarchy dice. They're actually leftovers from the Kickstarter we did last year. Someone made a clerical error. Someone screwed up, essentially. And now we have too many dice. And we have them over on the store. You can go grab a set. They look gorgeous. They're beautiful. There is a limited supply, so grab them while you can.
Add those Nerdarchy dice to your dice collection. All right, so today we're going to talk about, the dumbest deaths of D&D that have happened in our game. We'd love to hear some stories that you have had, whether it be a poor decision, whether it be, a brutal DM. Down in the comments below, share your stories and share that laughter that you've had with all of the watchers here.
All right, so number one is one that happened to one of my characters. I had a character that was reincarnated, came back as an ogre magi. So in this dumb D&D death, it is Fear of Annihilation versus the ogre magi. So Tomb of Horror, it's got the famous... Hold on. Spoilers! If you've not played Tomb of Horrors, don't know about Tomb of Horrors, you're going to play Tomb of Horrors, you might want to skip this and go to the next death. But there is the demon face that everybody's aware of. It's got an open mouth. The hole is not that big as I recall. I've not looked at Tomb of Horrors since, I played it way back when in second edition. And you couldn't actually get into it, and nothing happened the way my DM ran it. If you just poked stuff in there. I mean, if you put something in there completely, it would just disappear. And it's I don't know what happened to it. But if you reach in, it's just nothing or whatever. With the caveat of, if you could actually get into the hole, the mouth, right, is 2 foot in diameter or something. Most characters couldn't do it easily, right? Maybe if you had a small character, you could crawl in and go check it out. Or if you happen to be an ogre magi that had the ability to change their shape and size, I magically had to work my way into this mouth, which, of course, the flavor text is something like, you find plenty of room in this Fear of Annihilation. You're dead. Your character is gone. That was one of my early character deaths, and it was pretty dumb.
That phrase, and you find plenty of room in the Sphere of Annihilation, wound up being a joke that was told throughout numerous gaming groups. I am certain if you've got, some grognards around you, or you happen to be a grognard, this is something that you've probably heard before, dealt with before. I never understood the concept of the Sphere of Annihilation, why it was put in this. I never played Tomb of Horrors. I've never dealt with that, but I've heard tales of people reaching in, and that as soon as some part of your body touched the Sphere of Annihilation, you were just done. You were gone. Whether you just fall to the ground dead, whether you were sucked in, the stories vary, but it's always the same. You're dead, you're gone, and that's just...
The horror ensues.
It's just ridiculous. But it gave way to, the concept of... brutal DMs. And, that goes into my first story. Why does our DM hate us? So with this one, this is one of those DMs that was brought up, with the Tome of Horrors, where it was the brutal DM. That's just what you dealt with. If your character died, the party gets your loot, and you start back off at level 1. This group has been running for a while, and we had a hard-fought battle. Our characters have finally gotten all the way to level 9, which for this group was super high level. We never got this high. We had 9 players at this particular table. All but 3 of them were, basically starting new. Either they were joining the campaign for the first time, or their characters had died in the last session. And he felt generous. He was allowing them to start at level 3. And I don't know why he felt the need to do this, because before anything could actually happen, before we got an action, this mega creature, this Empyrean Titan, I think he called it a guardian, rips the roof off of the inn, and then proceeds to drop a wall of ice, a wall of fire, a wall of stone, and then a wall of force upon the party. Saving throws, minimum damage, all of that aside, second edition game, those third level characters didn't stand a chance against, one of them, let alone four of them. So they are just wiped off the map as the three remaining characters have to then contend what this creature is. Utterly ridiculous. So it begs the question, why on earth does the DM hate us?
Yeah, that style was very antagonistic in the way the DM was in their relationship with the players. And literally, one or two of those walls turned those characters into jelly. Then the fire incinerated that jelly. They were just so dead. That leads us up to our third dumb way to die. I lava you to death. And my good friend Jacob from XP to level 3 was running this game. And my character, Tony Two Tusk, we were on a floor that was descending into a pit of lava. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to run and jump to the ledge and pull myself up because it should be fairly easy. Tony Two Tusk was kind of a beefy character. He was a berserker. He had berserk, so he had 1 level exhaustion. He was going to have disadvantage on any checks. But I'm like, this is just a jump. It's a calculation. There's nothing to figure out. But Jacob, my DM, was like, hey, I need an athletics roll. So I'm like, okay, I'll rage so I don't do this at disadvantage. And I rolled like a 1 or something. And he instead of making this easy jump, he hit the wall, slid into the lava, and he was just dead, making it even dumber. Now, granted, I will never tell a DM how to run their games. If he wants an athletics check for whatever, the GM can arbitrate these rules however they were. But what makes it even dumber is the druid in the party had summoned a bunch of bats, and the rest of the party had just giant bats, and the rest of the party just flew out the next round or after the druid went. So it was a pretty dumb death.
So these kind of things can come from anywhere. Sometimes it's a player rolling poorly. Sometimes it's, from that brutal DM, and sometimes it just happens to be from dumb decisions. We've all had these kind
sometimes
of things.
Sometimes it's all three.
That's true. But, sometimes it happens to come an inane concept and has nothing to do with the in-game mechanics. Sometimes it has nothing to do with a die roll. Sometimes you miss a session and you're just dead. Our early group that we had, saw a lot of players come and go. And I think this might have been the last time this player wind up gracing this group. But a good friend of mine, he had a character for whatever reason. I don't know whether he had to go into work, whether he didn't feel well, whether his girlfriend could have, done, was free and he would rather go hang with her. He didn't show. And we had ended the last session, with, okay, we're going to sleep for the night. It wasn't called a long rest back in second edition. So the DM was like, oh, everyone wakes up and insert this character's name, because I honestly don't remember. They're hung by a tree, literally noose around the neck concept. Did the character hang himself? Did someone show up, string him up while he slept? We didn't find any clues. We didn't find any evidence that pointed one way or the other. That character was just gone. And in those days, resurrection, reincarnation, any of that stuff was not super common amongst our games. So yeah, that character was just gone because the player was not at the table.
Yeah, again, this DM was a little antagonistic and could be a bit on the brutal side. You missed the session, now you're dead. Was not very uncommon. I mean, that same character had lost half their pinky to aggravated damage, which isn't even a thing. It's just something that DM made up at that particular point when they failed to disarm a trap. So things happen. Number 5, owned by my own sword. So I vaguely remember this. Derek Woodstalker was my first D&D character. And we had gone on some adventures, and eventually we went on what we called the special item quest. where we each got like a custom tailored magic item made just for our character, adventuring afterwards. So my character hated orcs. He was an elf, a fighter, druid. And, my backstory was not very sophisticated back then. I was a teenager. It was the swords. Orcbane was just the name of the sword. Wasn't like super creative, but it did some cool things. I didn't even know everything that it did back then. It was really hard to learn what your magic items did. It was like trial and error, use it for a while. But I never really did get to learn all of the things that it did. It was intelligent. I remember being holed up in a rope trick spell with another character, and we kind of got like into an argument with our DM about something. So like, because we wouldn't do it, the DM won it. Our swords like kept, doing contested ego checks against our characters and kept winning. So they like kept doing damage to us. I was literally murdered by my own sword. That would just give me jolts of magical energy until I freaking died. Because I was too stubborn to go along with what the DM wanted. The dungeon master was, being kind of petulant about things, and I was reciprocating. So, it was like a teenage angst hissy fit that caused the death of my beloved Derek Woodstalker, my very first Dungeons and Dragons character.
So, lots of things can, go in the book of stupidity. Arguing with your DM, when they're antagonistic, absolutely falls into this realm. I'm thankful that, I don't have to contend with these kind of things anymore. I still love the challenge. I still love, getting into the dungeon grinds and whatever have you. The concept of like your magic item is going to kill you or you die for something stupid has fallen well away from the concept of what it means to be a DM, or at least for me. You can play the game however you like, however your table is happy to have. So we're not trying to tell you what's right and wrong way to play the game. Do what works for you and your table. But as I stated in the beginning, I'd love to hear, your ridiculous stories of how your character died in a dumb way.
Absolutely. If you want another video on the topic of death in D&D, you should check out Should a Dungeon Master Kill the Player Characters? Game Master Tips.
Let me tell you something that's not dumb. That's becoming a Patreon supporter of Nerdarchy over on Patreon.
Monthly, you'll receive 5e content for players and DMs, a chance to game with Nerdarchy, and automatically be entered in our giveaways and more.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.